next session is Ian Putter. Ian is the Blockchain COE and Innovation as a Service Specialist at Standard Bank. Ian will be discussing what is the status of blockchain in banking in South Africa. Very interesting topic, Ian. Thank you for joining us. I'm particularly interested in this topic. We have been hearing quite a bit from Standard Bank over the years that they are doing several things in the blockchain space. I know you were also part of Project Corker, and you have a partnership with the Adira Hashgraph blockchain.
Yes.
So very interesting. I'm going to leave you to your session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonia, and thank you for the opportunity. It's great to meet everyone on the call. I cannot see you, but I'm going to take you on a brief trip through what's actually happening in South Africa in the banking sector. And I'm going to start with digital assets, crypto assets. I'm going to touch briefly on CBDCs, stable coins, and I'm also going to talk about non-fungible tokens, and then about some of the opportunities, and then the new immersive internet, the metaverse that everybody's talking about. And while I'm talking about that, I'm also going to talk about regulations in South Africa and the rest of the world, because at the end of the day, whenever you're involved in Web3 payment rails, the new rails, you will need, and it's cross-border, you will need regulatory and policies to support it, regulatory changes as well as support. And I think that's very important in Africa, in all the different countries, but specifically in South Africa that I'm talking about today. So I don't think anyone can ignore what's happening with crypto assets and stable coins globally. It is becoming a significant alternative asset, and regulators are stating that they are busy with policies. Bank of England, the US, President Biden made a statement in the week about the digital assets, and that had a very positive impact on the markets and the perception of this market in general. There are still a lot of skeptical people, and I think it's due to a lack of knowledge. And we've seen a report that said that many people are still very attached to legacy. Obviously, that's what's making the money, and it's been making money for many years, but we are moving into this new paradigm shift. And I think every one of you on this call are aware of what's happening. So from a tokenization perspective, big companies globally are participating in tokenization. And I think a lot of people don't know that when you've got a digital asset, it associates identity, value, access rights, as well as governance. So having these tokens integrates a lot of the things that we used to do on different systems or software solutions in the past. Everything can be done simultaneously. There are huge benefits, and there's lots of hidden benefits that we've seen in the banking sector. KYC, self-sovereign identity is a very big focus point in the banking industry, but for tokenization as well. I mean, I've seen some solutions now that interoperates with all the crypto exchanges, and that makes accessing these systems and verifying that a person is who they say they is a lot easier, and that will give a lot of access to people. And we are working with a solution that's actually live, and our solution will probably also be live in June this year. I'm very confident because the progress is fantastic. We started working on that a while ago. And then from a stablecoin perspective, if you look at the USDC, I'm just going to mention that one. It grew 10,000% over the last 2 years. Turnover is $2.8 trillion, $50 billion issued. And the uptake in that's fantastic. If you look at that, everybody's aware of what the power of stablecoins is. And I think from a South African perspective, all the banks is looking at stable coins. And we, from a regulatory perspective, we're part of Project COCA 2, and there we're looking at stable coins, and we looked at CBDC, central bank digital currencies. And from a global perspective, CBDCs is a focus of all the central banks. 84% of them has done POCs. So has South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, to name a few. And I think the fact that the regulators are recognizing the potential and what distributed ledger technology and blockchain can actually do to bank the unbanked, there's still a lot of things that has to happen, though, is also indicative of what's happening in South Africa specifically. We've never, as a country, really been left behind when new developments occurred across the world. And I don't think it's going to happen with stable coins, and then also not with CBDCs. But there's still a long way to go. But that you mustn't think that nothing is happening if you don't see anything is happening. If you know about the 6Ds of digitization, you know there's this disruptive phase where lots of things are happening, no one sees it, and then suddenly there's things happening. And also in the tokenization space, we can see that there's a lot of focus on sustainability tokens. And I'm not going to call it, I don't want to call it sustainable, say a sustainable verse, metaverse as well, where people are creating this immersive internet environments where people can get together to support social, environmental, and governance initiatives. And that is something that is really a key focus. Gartner mentioned in one of its reports that 26% of all transactions will be on the metaverse by 2026. And for me, that is very clearly where Web3 is going to go. I mean, that immersive internet and the ability to have specific types of tokens, avatars. You can see all these things happening around you. And that's the generation Y and Z. And they say baby boomers are also involved in that space. And the core building blocks of a metaverse is digital assets, digital currencies, non-fungible tokens. And blockchain is typically crucial for a decentralized, distributed metaverse because no one's going to own anything. It's communities that will participate. You'll find big organizations and individuals participating there, doing advertisements, meetings, similar to what Meta said in their video a while ago. But that is becoming very real for us in the financial services industry as well, because a lot of the new financial services and products that we could develop in this space will be relevant in that kind of environment. And it's very important to stay relevant, not for the sake of staying relevant, but to evolve with these environments, to know how to define your business, new products, what's relevant, what type of use cases. So I think to stay right there is to participate as opposed to waiting and seeing what's going to happen, which is what some people tend to do. But I think in this new world, I've been in the blockchain space for 4 years, and I've never been in such a fast-changing environment where you think something is not going to work, and then a year later there's a new release in the open source world where people are constantly thinking how to enable people to access these platforms, how to create it. Blockchain also we can see it in the banking industry, is reducing the buffers to entry. So it's really supporting the decentralized economy, and it's decentralizing a lot of capabilities. Stable coins will facilitate fast, seamless cross-border payments in a very controlled manner. Sorry, I'm losing myself there, but that's some of the key points from a digital asset, stablecoin, and a Non-fungible tokens is also growing rapidly. If you look internationally, how these instruments are connecting creators and funders or investors directly. That's something people spoke about 5 or 6 years ago, how this new technology disintermediates and connects artists and creators directly to the people that want to buy their products. It also democratizes the space that in Africa and South Africa, people that typically struggle to get funding on these platforms can now, if you think of photographic NFTs, digital art, real art, where you can take physical things and basically represent it in this virtual space. And then give access to multiple people across the globe. Normally, we think about 10 million or 20 million people, but if you launch these tokens, you get access to everybody. And the participation for me that's very important is typically we think about communities participating on specific ecosystems, and they actually, if someone's got 10 rand to invest, typically they don't have a voice. But in this environment, if you contribute and you've got an avatar, no one knows, no one can discriminate against you. There's zero knowledge proof. You can participate on lots of things. And by contributing, doesn't matter how small your contribution is, you can still have a vote and you can participate. And I think that is what attracts a lot of the younger generations. So I really think that if you look at it from a growth perspective, the NFTs at this stage is rapid growth, and I think it's got fantastic use cases. As I said, not only from an investment and proper land fractionalization and enabling people to invest, for instance, in the Burj Khalifa, things that you never can get access to. Those things can actually be made available to people to invest and participate in the growth. Similarly, if you look at the existing assets that we've got, by putting some of those instruments like bonds or other tokens on decentralized exchanges, you bypass the costly environments that you have today, firstly, and people can issue these tokens still in a controlled manner. On these, it can be members-only exchanges or decentralized exchanges, and they can raise funds in that way. And you also give people an opportunity. This is quite an old use case. If you think about bonds on a decentralized bond exchange, that means that a pensioner can invest 10,000 rand and get that risk. I don't want to say risk-free investment. You don't get something like that, but they can get access to growth and secure investments that can help them with their pension funds, which only big companies in the past got access to. So those are the kind of things that we're seeing. Sorry, I've just seen that there's a few questions here. Let me go to the first one. Will the metaverse take off without an interoperable digital identity of users, an ID that works at least? Will some user categories be left behind? No, I don't think so. At the moment, when you enter, you must actually physically go and enter these environments. And I think if you've got an email, a lot of them don't have the self-sovereign identity capability, but a lot of them do have the KYC and the avatars where you can create an identity. So I don't think it's fully there, but if some of the solutions that I looked at, I don't want to mention products or things on this call, but they are that are already utilized and ready for utilization. So let me just put it that way. So it's a blend of those two. What level of interest is there by the banking sector in supporting a decentralized autonomous organization utilizing an asset-backed governance token focused on supporting green, sustainable environmental cleanup and clean tech projects and companies that are well aligned with SDGs? Wow. So this is a mouthful. But the thing is, there is definitely an appetite in our environment, and we're very keen on asset-backed tokens. as well. There are some initiatives taking place in that environment. And we're very keen to support green, sustainable environmental cleanups. And we've got actually an ecosystem where we will where we are starting to look at NFTs and these type of tokens. Sorry, I just want to look at more questions. Is there a risk that banks will cease to exist as we know them due to the uptake of DeFi and private money? I think banks will be there for a while because of the trust. And if you think of stablecoins, for instance, there's a great opportunity for banks to issue stablecoins to make sure that when you do cross-border payments, the controls are in place. Remember, anti-money laundering, a lot of the blockchains and the exchanges are providing AML and KYC capabilities, but I still think you're going to need banks to do those kind of things. There's other services that banks are also rendering that will be applicable in the future. Banks can also do crypto custodial services. Some of the trends that I wanted to talk to, but I just want to answer the questions quickly, is banks, the flavor of the moment globally is partnering with crypto exchanges and wallets. All the banks are doing it. And if you look at JP Morgan, Chase, if you look in South Africa, the local banks are partnering with crypto exchanges. They're working to provide crypto investment capabilities to their customers. So banks are not just ignoring this new world. They're fully embracing it and trying to participate in it. And from a customer perspective, we've also got demands from our customers that want access to these, but they want to access it maybe through a bank. Not everybody wants to go through a independent, decentralized capability. So I don't think they will cease to exist. But they will. But you're right. The way banks are going to operate is going to be totally different in the next 5 to 10 years because of this new Web3 environment. Banks will participate in all these environments, similar to your telcos. I just think that if you look at blockchains and the way that it's set up, that interoperability, you're going to find all those capabilities coming from different, and the people that does stuff the best will provide it to this bigger ecosystem. Consider just if you think about private money and retail CBDCs. Retail CBDCs is going to work alongside stable coins. Cash, I was in a presentation today, cash is still widely used. And if we want to disintermediate or stop cash and make cash, move it from physical to a digital world, there's a lot of environments and things that we'll have to do to support that. That as well, a good design for a retail CBDC is a partnership between private and public. So central banks, commercial and smaller banks, everybody will participate in supporting that ecosystem. You're always going to need the trust and you're always going to need the governance, but it will be done in a very efficient way. Some of the crypto companies, if I look at some of the big blockchain initiatives globally, there's 3 things that they're still asking for. In a decentralized environment, auditing doesn't make sense. But remember, if you've got asset-backed stable coins, which is the same as a crypto, it's just stable, people ask for auditability of the collateral. You need to have a party that keep that collateral that supports the asset-backed, the coins, to make sure that if someone wants to redeem their coin, in future it might be done in digital cash or in physical cash. That could be, that's still going to be important. So consider the negative growth inhibiting impact on society of banks restricting free market peer-to-peer barter trade using borderless on-chain digital. Question: how do you think about this? Dave Monroe. So banks are also working to get, if you think about WhatsApp Pay and all those things, to do peer-to-peer settlements. But I think that the crypto space, where this is possible, it's happening already. And if you look at the size of that market compared to the existing markets, it's still relatively small but growing rapidly. But I think when you're going to see retail CBDCs and stablecoins coming in, that will be addressed also in the existing markets, where if a bank's got a stablecoin, it's going to be like a token. People can send it on their wallets to each other, and they can pay businesses directly without an intermediary. So I think this is a good answer, but unfortunately in this meeting we won't have time to answer it. The financial space has been evolving at such a rapid pace. So just to summarize that answer, banks are trying to facilitate that. They're very aware of it, and a lot of the things that we're doing supports that. The financial space has been evolving in such a rapid pace that a certain part of participants, mainly the black people, seem to be left behind. The concepts and the tech are so disconnected to the environment. Difficult to explain that now. How do our banks looking to educate and include this group, and is there a timeline to this? Definitely. I think when you look at the CBDCs, what the purpose of those are, and stable coins is basically to provide tech, Wi-Fi, and capabilities for people in the future to support them. Current initiatives are also underway to address that in the banks. And the technology, I think the next generations, and when you look at unbanked environments and societies, there needs to be education, but I think it will be a lot simpler in future to support those communities to benefit. I'm looking at the US regulations where they said, and the Blockchain Research Institute, Biden released a report last year where they said it is the government's responsibility to facilitate, to provide the technology to these communities and to enable them to get access to free Wi-Fi. So I think those are the things that we will have to put in place. And I think that's where the green tokens, the ESG type blockchains will help funding these kind of environments. And we are working on those initiatives in Standard Bank as well. And I think that's what we've got time for, Sonia. I don't know how long the presentation is.
Yes, thank you very much, Ian. That was very interesting. We once again have not had any discussion at our Blockchain Africa conferences of blockchain in banking. So thank you for being the first one to do that and cover that.
Sorry, because I answered so many questions, I didn't touch on 3 other topics, but in future, I think if we have a longer one, I still wanted to talk about a few things, but I think it's more important to answer the questions.
Yes, thank you for doing that. I think there's so much to be covered in this topic. I think we just wanted to sort of get a quick overview of what is happening. So thank you for doing that. And as you say, I think I do believe that the banks still have a future. I don't think that these crypto exchanges are going to fully implement all the banking services that banks currently have, although there is obviously talk about crypto exchanges becoming the banks of the future. But that remains to be seen. So I think, thank you for addressing that point as well. So Ian, thank you. I think let's close off with that. And thank you very much. We hope to see you at the next Blockchain Africa conference in Johannesburg, where you are based.
Thank you. Bye.